This is a story about telling the future, or at least discounting it by paying attention to a whole lot of other people telling the future. The business of making a market in futures contracts tied to events is exploding. They may be fun, they may make some people some money, but do they tell us anything about what is around the corner?
I think our goal with prediction markets is really to allow every person that has an opinion on something to find that market and that big event that they care about to be able to trade on.
Luana Lopez Lara is the co-founder and COO of Kalshi, the first events contract exchange regulated by the Commodity Futures and Trading Commission. The company is currently raising funds at a valuation of $5 billion, even as the Intercontinental Exchange seeks to buy Kalshi's rival, Polymarket, for closer to $10 billion.
While we went to MIT, but one thing we realized is that most trading happens when you have an opinion about what's going to happen in the future and you find a way to put that in the market. So you think this country is going to go into a recession, or you think this person is going to win an election, or Brexit's going to happen, and you find a way to express that view in the market to hedge some risk that you have, or also to get exposure to something. And what we realized was there should be a better way to do it. For us, it was, why is there no direct exchange that you can just trade directly on what you think is going to happen?
Former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers sees real value in prediction markets like the ones Kalshi and Polymarket have created, not only for the people betting on events, but also for those hoping to learn about the outcomes.
Polymarkets is probably the largest of the various prediction markets that are out there. There are a number of them. I think these are a very useful tool because what markets do, markets where people can place a bet, take a position, is they enable you to get access to a kind of consensus opinion where people aren't just talking, but they have to put their money where their mouths are, and they're taking a stake in something. So let me give you an example. I don't live in New York. It's not my primary interest, but I do follow the New York City mayoralty election. There was a development. Mayor Adams withdrew. How much did that change the likely prospects of the election? One could have formed a judgment by trying to think about it. One could have formed a judgment by reading a lot of political analysts. In fact, you could just look at the prediction markets. That, I think, is the value. It helps us all be more informed about, even when there isn't much information available, about what's likely to happen in politics, what's likely to happen in foreign policy, what are the prospects of an agreement between Russia and Ukraine. I don't think anybody sensible would pretend that these estimates are exactly right, or these estimates are estimates that can be completely relied on. But I think there's a great deal of evidence from elections, from sports judgments, from other efforts at forecasting, that looking at these prediction markets provides what's a better and more reliable sense of which way things are going to go than talking to a single favorite expert.
Do prediction markets like Polymarkets potentially replace polls? I mean, polls have come under some siege. It's gotten harder and harder to do them. And by the way, are they more susceptible of being gamed?
David, I don't think they replace polls any more than the stock market replaces earnings forecasts. The stock market reflects earnings forecasts and helps people process what a company is worth given divergent discussions, but it wouldn't be able to function if there weren't data and there weren't analyses and projections of future earnings. So no, I don't think that prediction markets are a substitute for polls. They are a way of processing the information in polls, if you're not yourself a pollster, in a much better way.
Scott Rasmussen is a traditional pollster and editor-at-large of Ballotpedia. And as challenging as the business of polling has been in recent years, it's far from clear that prediction markets can replace it.
The definition of a good poll for most people is one that confirms what they want to see. And a lot of the criticism about polling is because of perceived inaccuracies or perceived biases. And a lot of that has to do with the difference between conducting a poll and interpreting the poll, between the polling and the analysis. 2016 is a year that I constantly hear people say the polling was wrong. Well, actually, the national polls in 2016 showed that Hillary Clinton would win the popular vote by 3 points. She won by 2. On the state-by-state polls, there were 47 states where there were no surprises whatsoever. There were 3 states that were a shock, the big blue wall states. My point to all of this is that the analysis, the way you look at the polls and the way you read them, has as much to do with the polling as or with the interpretation of the polls as anything else.
Scott, how has technology changed your business, maybe made it harder, particularly in getting representative samples in, things like cell phones as opposed to landlines?
We do almost all of our work now online through different panels and text approaches and other things. Every one of those, every polling methodology you use, and this has been true forever, has certain biases that you have to correct for. When we were doing phone polling exclusively, if you had to call into an urban area, you didn't get as many people answering the phones because they were out doing other things. So we would have to consciously work to place more calls into those areas. Today, I believe that pollsters can get a pretty good sample if you're careful with your methodology. If you're talking about a survey of registered voters or a survey of all adults, because we have census data, we have good models for what that should look like. Where pollsters have struggled in recent years and will continue to struggle is in the question of likely voters. Who's actually going to show up on election day? And as we all know, in close races, that's decisive.
And now there's a new technology in town called artificial intelligence. How is that changing polling? Is it making it better?
The thing that first made polling better, by the way, was having a lot more competition and a lot more pollsters, because we actually had to improve our game. Right now, artificial intelligence is reshaping all kinds of industries in ways that we can't imagine. I'm working on a project with Jigsaw, which is a tech incubator inside of Google. We're going to have a national conversation with 5 people from every congressional district. The difference in this poll, this is not to determine who's going to win the midterms or the 2028 presidential election. We're focused on what does it mean to be an American in the 21st century. This gets to one of the core problems in polling, and this is where AI can help. We don't all speak the same language anymore. So what we're doing with this project, we're asking questions, but we're letting respondents answer in their own words.
We also are seeing a rapid uptake in so-called prediction markets, or these futures markets tied to specific events contracts. How do those fit into the world of polling, if at all?
They don't fit into the world of polling, but I will tell you that on election night, when I'm doing, whether I'm doing analysis or if I'm sitting at home, I watch the prediction markets, because you've got a whole crowdsourced army of people out there who are looking for the latest news. And if I see a candidate going from a 70% bet to a 40% bet quickly, I say, oh, something has gone on here. I need to investigate and find out what it was. Leading up to election night, though, prediction markets are heavily dependent on polling. If you don't have polling, the prediction markets wouldn't be nearly as good as they are right now. What prediction markets have done is they're in effect another analyst. They're looking at all of the data, they're looking at the polls, they're also looking maybe at who's voting early, they may be looking at some other factors going on in the campaign, and they assemble that in a way that an analyst can't. No individual analyst could combine all of that information. So I like the crowdsourcing aspect of it. But again, it's not really a replacement for polling. There's all kinds of data that's out there today that we can look at and analyze and think about. And prediction markets are another important tool.